Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar, SNOMED CT-AU Content Hierarchy Overview. Today we will look at the content within the SNOMED CT-AU hierarchies. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that this presentation includes SNOMED CT, which is used by permission of the International Health Terminology Standards Development Organisation. SNOMED CT is used to record clinical data in electronic health records. It may be used to record a diagnosis, a family history, allergies, the reason for admission into hospital, a laboratory test result, medications, therapies, surgery, or a care plan. In this presentation, we will look at all the different types of concepts that can be found in SNOMED CT, including the ones that can be used in an electronic health record, and the ones that are used as part of the infrastructure or metadata for the terminology itself. Here is a view of the top-level hierarchies in SNOMED CT-AU, which is the Australian extension of SNOMED CT as seen from the Shrimp Terminology browser. The root concept, SNOMED CT concept, is organized into 20 top-level hierarchies and contains the core international content plus localized Australian content. In addition, we have another root concept, Australian concept, which contains all of the content that supports the Australian medicines terminology. While the naming may be a bit confusing, in that it doesn't contain all local Australian content, it was created as a way to develop the AMT independently to SNOMED CT while still conforming to specifications. We will look at each of these hierarchies in turn. The first hierarchy you'll see in an alphabetically ordered list is administrative value, which is available in the Australian extension of SNOMED CT. Administrative value supports administrative records in Australia. So this includes concepts such as advanced care plan, child protection service involvement, and general PBS benefit. These concepts are used within administrative elements of clinical documents as defined by national specifications, and can also be used to code for an alert. The next hierarchy we will talk about is body structure. Body structures represent both normal and abnormal anatomical structures. So this includes concepts for normal anatomical structures like femur and mitral valve structure, as well as abnormal morphological structures like adenosarcoma. Body structures are used in health records in a number of places, such as the location of a symptom, such as rash on the arm, the location of a disorder, such as arthritis of the knee, the site of a procedure, for example, an X-ray of the left shoulder, and also the site at which a medication or therapy was administered, for example, eye drops, which were administered in the right eye. In these examples, the arm, the knee, the left shoulder, and the right eye are the body structures. One of the most commonly used hierarchies in SNOMED CT is the clinical finding hierarchy. This hierarchy contains concepts which represent the result of clinical observations, assessments, or judgments, and this includes both normal and abnormal clinical states, such as disorders like asthma, symptoms like headache, and clinical signs like normal breath sounds. Clinical findings are used throughout the health record for a variety of purposes, such as the reason for admission to a hospital, diagnoses, signs and symptoms, laboratory test results, and results of assessments such as activities of daily living assessment. The next hierarchy is not used quite so often. It is the environment or geographical location hierarchy. This hierarchy contains concepts which represent types of environments as well as named locations such as countries, states, and regions. It includes concepts such as intensive care unit, academic medical centre, and Australia. And these concepts may be used in a health record to record the care setting of a patient, their birth country, their living environment at home, or the type of location in which an event occurred. The next hierarchy is the event hierarchy. Events represent things that occur which are not procedures or interventions, and we'll talk more about those later. So events include concepts like a flood, an earthquake, a fall from a ladder, or an exposure to a communicable disease. Events may be used as the reason for admission to a hospital or as part of the past history of a patient. The next hierarchy is the observable entity hierarchy. Observable entities are things that can be observed. They represent a question or an assessment which can produce an answer or result. Observable entities and clinical findings often work together because the observable entity represents the question, while the clinical finding represents the answer. Examples of observable entities include systolic blood pressure, color of iris, and gender. Concepts in this hierarchy are used to represent the name or type of an observation. Other code systems, such as LOINC, can also be used for this purpose. The organism hierarchy includes concepts that represent a variety of organisms which are significant in human and animal medicine. These include microorganisms, animals, and plants, such as human papillomavirus, Streptococcus pyogenes, acacia, and Texan cattle breed. There are a number of reasons why organisms are included in health records. For example, as a microorganism which is being tested for susceptibility to a medication, such as an antibiotic, or as the cause of a disease or infection. Organisms can also be associated with allergens or vaccine ingredients. However, it is usually the substance concept, such as cat dander, pollen, or poliovirus antibody, that is used for these purposes, rather than the organism itself. Pharmaceutical biologic products are medication products or drugs. They include concepts that describe a type of medication at various levels of detail, such as paracetamol plus codeine, which includes only the active ingredients, salbutamol infusion, which includes the active ingredients and dose form, and amoxicillin 250 mg capsule, which includes the active ingredients, strength, and dose form. The main use for these concepts are in medication lists, so we do not use this hierarchy in Australian implementations. The AMT should be used instead because it describes commonly used medications in Australia and supports electronic medication management, such as current medication list, past medications, or recorded in prescription and dispense records. It is important to note that the international edition of SNOMED CT only includes unbranded medication concepts. The branded concepts, which include a trade name, are always added into the national extension in the country in which the product is registered. Physical forces are forces that can play a role as a mechanism of injury. For example, friction, fire, or radiation. Physical forces aren't used for many purposes in a health record. The most common reason for recording a physical force is as the reason for injury. The physical object hierarchy contains concepts representing natural and man-made physical objects. For example, a vena cava filter or stent, a bandage, a walking frame, or a bed. Physical objects are used for orders and supply of medical devices, such as a walking frame. They are used as procedure devices, which may be the device, like a stent, being implanted, or another device, like a cardiac pacemaker, being removed. Physical objects may also be used for stock inventory or ward management. The next hierarchy is the procedure hierarchy. Procedures represent activities performed in the provision of healthcare. This includes not only surgical procedures such as appendectomy, but also the administration of medicine, such as the administration of anesthesia, imaging such as X-rays and ultrasounds, education such as diabetic care education, therapies like physiotherapy, and administrative procedures like admission or discharge. Procedures are frequently documented in a health record. The most common reasons to do so are to record the procedures that have been performed, for example, during a hospital stay, to record the procedures that are planned, such as you may find in a care plan, or to record a procedure that is being ordered or requested. Qualifier values represent the values of some of the SNOMED CT attributes, where those values are not subtypes of another top-level concept. For example, left, severe, or capsule. Qualifier values are used in health records to define the laterality of a diagnosis or procedure, such as left, right, or bilateral. The severity of a condition, for example, severe, the priority of a procedure, for example, emergency, a medication dose form like tablet or capsule, and a route of administration, such as oral or topical. Record artifacts represent content that is created to provide people with information about record events or status of affairs. Examples include a patient-held record, a discharge summary, a record entry, a family history section on a report, and a birth certificate. Record artifact concepts are used in health records to document the type of identification used by a patient or to specify the type of document used or required. The situation with explicit context hierarchy is a special hierarchy that is used to represent clinical findings or procedures that explicitly declare their context. They may refer to clinical findings about a family member of the patient, procedures that have not yet occurred, or procedures or findings that have occurred sometime in the past. Examples of situations with explicit context include endoscopy arranged, family history of glaucoma, and past history of myocardial infarction. Situation with explicit context concepts are used throughout health records for things like family histories, past histories, and care plans. In some cases, the context is explicitly captured in the health record structure itself, like in a family history section on a report and then not included in the recorded concept. In other cases, the explicit context is included in the concept recorded in the health record to ensure that queries over the data don't mistakenly assume that the default context applies. The SNOMED CT model component hierarchy is another special hierarchy, but in this case it is purely used to support the SNOMED CT release itself. It provides the metadata that helps to document SNOMED CT concepts, relationships, descriptions, and reference sets. This hierarchy contains concepts like case insensitive and fully specified name, which may help to document a description. Simple type reference set, which provides the type of reference set, and ISA, which is used as a relationship type. SNOMED CT model component concepts are not intended to be recorded in a health record. Instead, these concepts belong in the terminology server to document the characteristics of the terminology components. When we get to the end of this list of core top-level hierarchies, we're going to come back to this one and look a bit deeper at what it contains. The social context hierarchy includes social conditions and circumstances that are significant to healthcare. For example, occupations such as construction worker, which may be associated with particular health risks. Social contexts also support detailed recording of family history, for example, indicating that the grandparent of subject had a particular medical condition. The special concept hierarchy contains concepts that should never be stored in an electronic health record, but which may be useful for specific use cases. It contains two sub-hierarchies. The first is called inactive concept, with children such as duplicate concept. When the first release format, RF1, was used, inactivated content was moved into this hierarchy. However, this approach is no longer used in the current release format, RF2. The other sub-hierarchy of special concept is called navigational concept. This sub-hierarchy contains concepts such as alternative medicine poisoning, which may be used by an association or ordered association reference set to group concepts for specific use case. These groupings are not included in the main hierarchies because the groupings are not always true, as required to be a defining property. Special concepts should not be recorded in health records, but instead tend to only be used when searching, navigation, or grouping is required for specific use cases. Next is the specimen hierarchy. Specimens are entities that are obtained, usually from a patient, for examination or analysis. For example, urine specimen, blood specimen, and skin biopsy. Specimen concepts are recorded in a health record as the collected specimen for a pathology test, or the specimen removed during a biopsy. The staging and scales hierarchy contains concepts that represent assessment scales and tumor staging systems. For example, the Glasgow Coma Scale and the FIGO staging system of gynecological malignancy. In health records, these concepts are used to record types of assessments and the staging system used to describe the progression of a disease. And the last main hierarchy in SNOMED CT, when ordered alphabetically, is the substance hierarchy. Substance concept represent general substances, the chemical constituents of pharmaceutical, biological products, body substances, dietary substances, and diagnostic substances. Examples of substances include methane, insulin, paracetamol, and albumin. Substances are recorded in health records for a variety of purposes, the most common of which is for allergies and adverse reactions, as the ingredients in medications, and as the diagnostic substance for a pathology test. Now that we have reviewed all the content hierarchies, we're going to come back to the SNOMED CT model component hierarchy and have a bit of a closer look at the types of concepts contained in this hierarchy. There are 5 main sub-hierarchies of SNOMED CT model component: core metadata concept, foundation metadata concept, linkage concept, namespace concept, and OWL metadata concept. In the next few slides, we'll look at each of these sub-hierarchies in turn. The core metadata concept hierarchy contains the metadata needed to support concepts, relationships, and descriptions in the SNOMED CT International Edition. This includes a number of sets of enumerated values that can be used to populate the attributes of a concept, a relationship, or a description. So, for example, the case significance of a description may be case insensitive. The characteristic type of a relationship may be defining relationship. The definition status of a concept may be sufficiently defined concept definition. The description type of a description may be fully specified name, and the module of any type of component may be SNOMED CT core module. The foundation metadata concept hierarchy contains the metadata needed to support reference sets in the SNOMED CT International Edition. This includes different types of reference sets, such as simple type reference set or a language type reference set, and it also includes concepts representing each of the attributes defined in the standard reference set types, such as map target and acceptability, and the enumerated values of those attributes whose value is a concept. The linkage concept hierarchy contains the concepts that are intended to link 2 or more other concepts to each other to express compositional meaning. So this means that all the concepts that can be used as a relationship type are included. The linkage concepts that are approved for the use are the ISA concept, which defines the hierarchy in SNOMED CT, and the concept model attributes such as finding site and laterality. The use of other linkage concepts is regarded as non-standard. Next, the namespace concept sub-hierarchy contains concepts that represent the core namespace and each extension namespace that has been assigned by SNOMED International. The identifier of each of the extension namespaces is used when creating new concepts in that extension to ensure that the resulting concept identifier is always globally unique. The last SNOMED CT model component sub-hierarchy is called OWL metadata concept. This sub-hierarchy includes concepts that are used by OWL expression type reference sets, such as the OWL axiom reference set and the OWL ontology reference set. These concepts are used as the referenced component for some OWL expressions where no other suitable referenced component is available, such as for general concept inclusion axioms, OWL ontology headers, and OWL ontology namespace definitions. So now we'll look at the content under Australian concept. Australian concept supports the Australian medicines terminology that covers medicines and their defining attributes. It has 3 top-level hierarchies: Australian product, Australian qualifier, and Australian substance. However, it still uses the same metadata hierarchy that is in the SNOMED CT concept hierarchy, i.e. the SNOMED CT model component. Australian product describes the 7 notable classes that includes medicinal and trade products. These represent medicinal products at various levels of granularity to support the different clinical use cases in electronic medication management scenarios. Some examples include the medicinal product, paracetamol plus codeine, the trade product, Infinrix Hexa, the medicinal product unit of use, diclofenac sodium 25 mg enteric tablet, the trade product pack, amoxil 500 mg capsule 28, and the container trade product pack, betadine antiseptic 10% ointment 65 gram tube. Australian qualifier is similar to the core qualifier value hierarchy. It provides values for AMT attributes that help define the products and includes container type, form, unit of use, and unit of measure. Some examples include blister pack, enteric capsule, and milligram per mil. Finally, we have Australian substance, which contain medicinal substances that are constituents of AMT products. Examples include calcium carbonate, lansoprazole, and paracetamol. So in summary, this presentation has explored the wide range of clinical concepts that can be found in SNOMED CT-AU, including body structures, clinical findings, procedures, those of administrative value, and the AMT. SNOMED CT also contains metadata concepts that are used to help define terminology itself. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this presentation has given you an appreciation for the breadth of clinical concepts contained within SNOMED CT-AU. If you'd like to learn more about the SNOMED CT content hierarchies, there are e-learning courses available that go into more detail. You can also read the relevant sections of the editorial guide and the SNOMED CT starter guide, and the documents that describe the AMT concept model, business use cases, and editorial rules. Thank you. Goodbye.